Okay, so this is the video support for Unit 1, Concept 10. This question asks you to consider the two scientific investigation approaches on page 14 and 15 of your textbook and provide two ways that the approaches are similar and two ways that they are different. I am not going to do any of the comparison portion for you, but what I will do is I will talk a little more about each of the different approaches discussed. Okay, so the first approach is the method of what they're calling scientific investigation. Most other method books are going to call it quantitative research in the aspect that you can quantitate your findings or mathematically, statistically support your findings. So the first thing that you're going to do in this method is determine your research question. You're then going to go to the existing body of research and look at studies that have previously addressed this question. For example, they may actually have found an answer to the question and you are just needed to support their findings, or you may be going in a different direction and expanding upon what they found. Looking at the research, looking at the information on the topic is known as a literature review. Next, you're going to determine a method of gathering information. So are you going to use a survey? Are you going to do observation? Are you going to have a questionnaire? All of those types of things. What are you going to do to collect your data? Then you'll actually collect your data or conduct the study with any boundaries or guidelines that you developed in your methods. You're then going to interpret your results statistically. So you're going to say, what did you find based on how you set forth what you were going to do. So usually this is using an ANOVA or a multiple regression, or on the simpler side, a t-factor or something like that, to take the data that has been collected and analyze it. When you're talking quantitative data, you need large numbers of people responding to your surveys or to your whatever study you're doing. So you would need large number of participants. The reason we do this is through quantitative data, we try to make things generalizable or applicable, taking what we learned in the study and being able to apply it to most of the general population. Once we have our results, we can then draw the conclusions from our results. We state any limitations of the study. For example, this only looked at elementary schools, data from elementary schools in rural neighborhoods, or we only examined 7-year-olds, something like that. So how you limited your study, and then you need to make your conclusions and present your findings. And so then what people are going to do with your findings is take them, try to prove them, disprove them, or expand upon them for future research and to provide future understanding. So when it is a more quantitative, most people can take your findings and apply it to their own study or research as well. So it's a very linear, straightforward process. Now, the other side of research is known as qualitative research, and while similar, it's not exactly the same. So with qualitative research, we usually have a broader area of interest. And then we need to examine, we pick a group, a very specific group. It can be as small as one person to study, and we have to gain entrance or gain permission of that person or group to study. So for example, we may look at a youth group in a Baptist church, or we're going to do a case study of one autistic girl's journey through the K-12 system, something like that, and look at from her first year to her last year in the system and how it all went. And so that would be really in-depth in a very specific situation. It's not so broad and generalizable as you are when you're looking at very large numbers of populations. While you're there, you're going to gather those field notes about the setting, the people, the structures, the activities, what's going on, anything like that. And then you're going to start having themes and categories and information come out of the data you're collecting that seek to answer the questions that you set forth at the beginning of the study when you were doing that broad area of interest. You're going to modify and tweak the questions as the study goes along because the questions may change or be adapted because of what you're finding. So it's not as restrictive, where in quantitative, you are restricted very straightforward to the questions that you asked. Once you have those patterns and consistencies that you found, you're going to find the themes and categories, and those are going to be your findings that can be shared. As discussed throughout this description, qualitative data goes deep dive into a very small group, which means that it is not that generalizable. I can't say that every autistic girl's experience through the K-12 system is going to be like this autistic girl's experience through the K-12 system. Where when you take quantitative, you're going to take, often you take your qualitative findings and you try to see, is there a common thread that this is what this type of person experiences? And so the last that they don't really talk here is a mixed method study. Just to briefly give you that description, it's a little bit of quantitative and a little bit of qualitative. So when you have a mixed method study, you have pieces of both types of research in your research. I hope that helps you a little bit. So once again, we're kind of looking at the first scientific investigation model that they gave you as being a more quantitative approach to researching, and the second model that they gave you to being a more qualitative approach to researching. Have a great one.